Hi, welcome to Great Practice, Great Life. I am here with my friend and colleague, Ed Kainen, attorney Ed Kainen. So Ed, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Steve.
So Ed, I didn't give you a great introduction because I just want you to start talking. So let's first introduce yourself to the audience. So who are you? What do you do? And where do you live?
Okay. I'm Ed Kainen. I have been in Las Vegas for about 30 years, and I have a practice that is realistically a very high-end family law practice that deals with everything from, top celebrity cases to mom and pop cases, depending on the clients. But it's a good practice. We have the largest group of most credentialed family lawyers in the state, period.
Yeah, you're one, if you're not the big dog, you're one of the biggest dogs in the state of Nevada. And when it comes to being the go-to firm in that area of the country for family law. But you didn't start there.
Nope.
You didn't start there. And this is one of the reasons I wanted to get you on the podcast. I was joking with you before we started this. There's like 10,000, maybe 8,000 more or less podcasts I'd like to do with you because there's a lot of things you can share and a lot of wisdom. But I'd like to, for people listening to this, because we have young lawyers listening to this, we have experienced lawyers, we have lawyers that are niching, we have all kinds of different lawyers listening. But I'd like to begin at the very beginning with you. So you're not originally from Vegas. You're a transplant.
Yeah, I'm originally from New York. And then when I was a teenager, my folks moved to Florida. And I grew up in Miami and went to college in Tampa. And so I'm originally a Florida boy, I guess.
Yeah. And so let's talk about that because it kind of, a lot of people kind of fall into their practice and their niches in a variety of different ways. And so I wanted to talk about that from the viewpoint that, we all kind of like tumble through this and then we end up in the right place at the right time, more or less. But there's a lot of lawyers that are still tumbling or they feel like they're tumbling. So let's go back. You're out of law school. You're running loose in Miami, unsupervised. And what was your dream? I mean, as a lawyer, what was your dream?
Well, I really was torn between two different things. In my heart of hearts, I wanted to be a criminal prosecutor. I'd seen F. Lee Bailey when I was growing up. I used to go down to the federal courthouse in Miami, and I would watch F. Lee Bailey practice, do cases. And the experience taught me a couple of different things. First of all, F. Lee Bailey was a really, really short guy. And he had just an unbelievable presence. But it also taught me that I didn't want to do criminal defense. It didn't sit well with me, but criminal law did.
So you go to Vegas, and so he's like, okay, what I was going to do is be a career prosecutor in Florida. And that didn't quite go the way I thought. But one of the things that you do really well is you develop friendships and relationships. And so you stayed in touch with a guy in Vegas, and the guy in Vegas says, hey, you need to come check this out. And then you went to Vegas. And when you went to Vegas, you didn't decide I want to be a celebrity family law lawyer. Like
Nope.
you were probably still wanting to be a prosecutor. So what happened?
Well, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be somewhere else. And I knew from my experience in Florida that by that point, I had really swallowed the Kool-Aid and didn't want to do anything. Criminal defense just still didn't appeal to me.
Right.
And so I wanted to do something different. And I came out here and before I came out, I shotgunned a bunch of letters and I had some interviews I interviewed with this PI firm. And I remember I only knew two people when I came out here. I knew my friend Andy and the lawyer he worked for, who was a pretty well-known lawyer in Las Vegas. And I sat with Stu, and I'd gone through all these interviews. And I had this interview at a PI law firm, and I had a great offer. I mean, it was probably 3 times what I was earning. And, Stu asked me what I thought of the offer. And I said, well, the numbers are attractive, but, my instinct tells me I can't trust this guy as far as I can throw him. And, he knew the lay of the land and he knew the players. And he said, trust your instinct on that.
Wow.
And so it was good that I didn't do that, but I had some other offers as a law clerk. And that was really what I thought I would do when I came out, was to, I knew how much from working in a legal community where everything was, everybody and everything was enmeshed, that I knew getting to know the lay of the land was important. And so I took a job as a law clerk, figuring it would give me an opportunity to get to know the way that the sausage got made, get to know the judiciary, the lawyers who came before the judge. And it just happened among the law clerk offers that I had from that interview period. The judge I liked the most was a family court judge, and they had just started a family court in Nevada, what they call a unified family court. So it's just handling family court matters. And I really liked this guy, and we got along great, and I took the position. And so next thing I knew, I was in family court for a guy who never took family law in law school and never dreamed he'd be a divorce lawyer.
Yeah, well, if
So
you try 100, 150 jury trials, you seem to know a little bit about people. You seem to know a little bit about procedure. You seem to know a little about veracity, how to position, how to talk to a jury. I mean, just picking a jury, good Lord. So there's a lot of experience there that another lawyer will respect and listen to if they're humble and wise. And so it sounded like he was a very wise man.
He was really, I mean, it was great. And so what ended up happening was, one of my responsibilities was a couple of, I would be out on the morning docket. I would be out in the hallway organizing the cases as they would come in. And I would, up in chambers or outside the chambers in the lobby, I would meet with pro se litigants and try and explain things to them. And, so it was just dealing with a lot of that stuff. And early on, or probably a few months in, I'm still getting to know people, but the lawyer who becomes my partner later, a guy named Howard Ecker, who I have always regarded as the top family lawyer in Nevada. And I didn't know him at this point, or at least I just getting to know him. I had gone out to explain something to some pro se litigant in the lobby, and he was waiting for an appointment with another judicial department. And he just happened to be in the lobby. I didn't even see him. And I spent a few minutes explaining things to whoever this pro se litigant was. And I didn't know at that time, but Howard was with our old office administrator at the time, and they took notice of me. So I got on their radar long before I ever knew that. And they took some time to sort of get to know me while I was clerking. They would force engagements with me and things like that, or just, ask questions, make a phone call, do whatever. And a few months before my clerkship was done, I got a phone call from Howard saying, let's go to lunch. And we, that was our courtship period. And, I got made an offer that was, it wouldn't have mattered probably what the offer was, because the opportunity was to work with him. And I recognized that as being an unbelievably good opportunity. And, it was during a time when I was like hoarding supplies from the county, to open my own shop, because my takeaway lesson had been that I didn't work well and play well in organizations. And so if I was going to be successful, I would have to open my own practice and be a solo. And so that's what I was doing. And so this offer came from Howard, and I was like, it just looked like a great opportunity. And I ended up, 30 years later, I'm a divorce lawyer.
So part of it's interesting because part of it wasn't really driven by the law, but driven by relationships.
Mm-hmm. No question.
You weren't like, hey, I can't wait to be a celebrity family law attorney. You were like, it was driven by relationships. And at this point in your career, and this is important. So if you're listening as a lawyer, there's a couple big takeaways. Like you're trying to build your career here. But one of the things that you did well, which is you looked upstream and listened for advice and wisdom. Right. And so you use mentors well. And so in this case, I think maybe that was a lesson from going from Florida to Vegas. You said, okay, there's some things I have to learn yet. And so there's some things I have to learn. So the judge, what was the judge's name?
It was Bob Gaston.
Okay. So Bob becomes a mentor for you as your first job in Vegas. And then your soon to be partner and office administrator notice you and pay attention and start to vet you gently, not so gently, kind of watching how you handle yourself, how you professionalism. And I imagine that was a big deal for him. I
didn't know it at the time. And Howard was not a very traditional, or is not a very traditional lawyer. He was a rebel. He was a he was a Vietnam era lawyer who came out of Soho in New York. I can count on one hand the number of times Howard has actually worn a full suit. He was a public defender when he started out. he came to Las Vegas directly, ironically, because of a clerkship, but he became a public defender in town. And he was a rebel. And so even when he used to dress up as a young lawyer handling some big cases, or a younger lawyer handling big cases, he would wear his standard attire was blue jeans, a white shirt, a Nicole, I don't know if you remember the Nicole Miller ties.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right. And he would wear this blue suede jacket, and where you might have the crest from whatever Ivy League school you went to on it, he had a giant Mickey Mouse patch.
Oh my God.
So, and he prided himself on this, because he would tell the stories about, we went into court as a young public defender, and the judges would give, and he had long hair. I mean, not by the time I knew him, but he had long hair as a public defender. And the judges would be, they would start with, well, I see the defendant is here, is your lawyer here, kind of thing. And just to bust his chops. And Howard's always been a bit of a rebel. So although he was looking for somebody with talent and ability, and he had the foresight to realize something that it took me a long time to realize, that if he surrounded himself with really good lawyers, his burden was lighter.
Yeah.
And so that was really, I think for him, what he saw in me was, I was smart. I knew how to, I knew how to handle people at the time. I had the chops to try a case. But for him, it was probably, I think if you asked him, he would tell you, it was the ability to interact with people.